There came to me last week a letter from a man in Chicago. He wrote, Neville, I have been applying your law for 2 years. I imagine wealth every night. I feel it as real, and yet my bank account remains unchanged. The bills pile higher. My creditors grow more insistent. What am I doing wrong? I will tell you what he is doing wrong, because 99 out of 100 who hear me make the same mistake. They imagine wealth, they feel wealth, but the moment they open their eyes in the morning, they return to the old state. They check the bank account, and in that checking, they have re entered the state of lack. They have undone in one moment what they built all night in imagination. Listen to me carefully. The law works. Consciousness is the only reality. Assumption hardens into fact. I have proven this 1,000 times in my own life and in the lives of those who hear me. But if your financial world has not changed, it is not because the law failed. It is because you are observing the old fact instead of occupying the new state. Tonight I am going to give you 7 laws. But understand me, there are not 7 laws. There is one law. What I will share with you are 7 facets, 7 angles of vision into the single principle that governs all supply, all provision, all wealth in your world. And if you grasp even one of these facets and apply it faithfully, your financial experience must change. It has no choice. The outer world is effect, consciousness is cause. Now, before I give you the first law, I must tell you something that will save you years of struggle. Most of you believe that money obeys different rules than love, or health, or any other desire. You think there is a law for manifestation and a separate law for money. There is not. The same consciousness that heals your body will fill your bank account. The same assumption that brings you love will bring you wealth. Money is not special, it is not sacred, it is not more difficult to obtain than anything else. It is consciousness made visible, nothing more. So then, if consciousness is the only reality, and if assumption hardens into fact, why are so many of you still struggling? Why do the bills still come? Why does the raise not appear? I will show you why. And more than that, I will show you exactly what to do tonight to change it. The first law is this: consciousness is the only reality. I have told you this before, but I will tell you again. There is no reality outside of your consciousness. The economy is not a fact. Your employer's decision is not a fact. Your debt is not a fact. All of these are outpicturings, shadows, effects of the one cause, consciousness. Now listen to me carefully, because the world will tell you otherwise. The world will tell you that circumstances are facts, that the economy controls your supply, that you must accept what is. I tell you they are wrong, dead wrong. Circumstances have no power. The economy has no power. Only consciousness has power, and you are that consciousness. I remember the years of the Great Depression. I was a young man then, teaching this principle in New York. Men would come to me and say, Neville, the banks have failed, jobs are gone, businesses are closing. These are facts. How can you tell me consciousness is the only reality when I see this poverty all around me? And I would say to them, they are facts only because you have accepted them in consciousness. I have seen men rise to wealth in the very midst of this depression. How? Because their consciousness was not of depression but of abundance. They did not deny the outer circumstances, they simply refused to accept them as cause. They knew that consciousness is cause and circumstances are effect. One man in particular comes to mind. He had lost his position, his savings were gone. He came to me discouraged, asking what he should do. I told him, do nothing outwardly, change your consciousness, assume you are employed, assume you are prosperous, and persist in that assumption. At first he resisted. He said, but Neville, I must look for work. I must do something. I told him, you will do something. You will assume the feeling of employment. You will live in that state. And when you have done that, the outer world will conform. He came to me again 2 weeks later. He had tried, he said, but nothing had changed. I asked him, have you been observing the old fact or occupying the new state? He admitted he had been checking the newspaper every morning, counting his dwindling funds, measuring the lack. I told him, then you have not changed consciousness, you have only thought about changing it. The third time he came to me, something had shifted. He said, Neville, I stopped looking at the evidence. I stopped counting what I do not have. Every night I imagine myself in a fulfilling position, earning well, living comfortably, and during the day, when the thought of lack arises, I return to that assumption. I do not fight the thought, I simply replace it. Within 1 month, he received an offer, not through any job he had applied for, but through a former colleague who contacted him unexpectedly. The position paid more than the one he had lost. He had not made it happen through outer effort, he had let it happen through inner assumption. You see, consciousness is cause. The moment you accept this, truly accept it, you stop being a victim of circumstances, you become the operant power. This brings me to the second law. Assumption hardens into fact. Now listen carefully. You do not wait to feel wealthy when the money arrives. You assume wealth now, and the assumption, if persisted in, will harden into fact. I tell you, this is law. An assumption, though false to the outer world, if persisted in, will harden into fact. I have tested this principle in my own life 1,000 times. I have seen it proven in the lives of those who hear me. But what does it mean to assume? It does not mean to pretend, it does not mean to lie to yourself. It means to occupy the state, to wear the feeling of wealth as you would wear a garment. But hold this thought, my friend. There is a specific difference between assuming wealth and merely wishing for it. A difference in feeling. Without understanding that difference, you will imagine every night and see no change. I will tell you that difference in just a moment, for it is the secret that determines whether your assumption takes root or evaporates. Let me give you an example. A woman wrote to me several years ago. She was in debt, thousands of dollars in debt. She had tried affirmations. She had tried positive thinking. Nothing had changed. She asked me, what should I do? I told her, assume you are debt-free. Not that you will be debt-free. Not that you hope to be debt-free. Assume you are debt-free now. Wear that assumption. Live in it. Persist in it. She wrote back, but Neville, I am not debt-free. The bills are real. The creditors are calling. How can I assume something that is not true? I said to her, it is not true in the outer world, but the outer world is effect, not cause. You are cause. Your assumption is cause. Change your assumption, and the outer world must follow. She began that night. Every evening before sleep, she imagined herself debt-free. She did not imagine paying off the debts. She did not imagine the means. She imagined the end. She saw herself reviewing her accounts with satisfaction, feeling the relief, the freedom, the peace of being completely free of debt. During the day, when a bill arrived, when a creditor called, she would return to that assumption. She did not deny the bill. She simply refused to accept it as final. She said to herself, I am debt-free. This is temporary. My assumption is the reality. She persisted for 6 months, and at the end of those 6 months, she received word that a relative, estranged for years, had passed and left her an inheritance. She had not known this relative had any money. She had not expected anything, but the inheritance was enough to clear every debt, with some remaining. Now, some would call this coincidence. I call it law. Assumption hardens into fact. She wore the feeling of being debt-free, and the outer world rearranged itself to match her inner state. But here is where most of you fail. You assume once, maybe twice, and then you return to observing the old fact. You check the bank account, you measure the lack, and in that moment you have left the assumption. You have re-entered the old state. Persistence, my friend. Persistence is everything. This leads us to the third law. Feeling is the secret. I have said this many times and I will say it again. Feeling, that is the secret. Not your thoughts, not your words, not your affirmations, your feeling. You have heard me speak of feeling and many have misunderstood me. Let me be plain. When I say feeling, I do not mean emotion. I do not mean excitement or enthusiasm or any heightened state. I mean the feeling of naturalness. The quiet inner knowing that it is already done. If you are excited about your wealth, you do not yet have it in consciousness. Excitement is the feeling of anticipation, of waiting. The wish fulfilled feels natural, calm, complete. You can think about wealth all day long. You can affirm wealth 1,000 times, but if you do not feel wealthy, you will not be wealthy. When you imagine yourself wealthy, you must feel it as natural, not as something exciting or new, but as something that simply is. The way you feel about having 2 hands, you do not get excited about having 2 hands. You accept it as natural. That is the feeling I mean. Most of you, when you imagine wealth, you feel a thrill, you feel excitement. And that excitement is proof that you do not yet believe it. You are still in the state of wanting, not having. The wish fulfilled feels natural. It feels quiet. It feels like relief, like satisfaction, like rest. Let me tell you of a man who came to understand this. He wanted financial security. He had been imagining it for months, he said, but nothing had changed. I asked him, "How do you feel when you imagine it?" He said, "I feel excited, I feel hopeful, I feel like it is finally going to happen." I told him, "That is your problem. Excitement means you are still waiting for it. Hope means you do not yet have it. You must feel it as already done." He did not understand at first. He said, "But Neville, if I already had it, I would be excited." I told him, "No, if you already had it, you would be calm, you would be satisfied, you would take it for granted. Think of something you already have. Do you feel excited about it? No, you feel natural about it. That is the feeling of the wish fulfilled." He went away and tried again. This time, instead of imagining with excitement, he imagined with naturalness. He saw himself reviewing a healthy bank statement the way one reviews a familiar document. He felt the quiet satisfaction of security, not the thrill of something new. Within weeks, an opportunity appeared. A client he had worked with years before reached out with a contract. The income was exactly what he had been imagining, and when it came, he felt no surprise. He felt naturalness, because he had already accepted it in consciousness. Feel it. Feel it now. The feeling of wealth as natural, as already yours. Cultivate that, and the outer world must conform. Now, the fourth law is one that many overlook. It is the pruning shears of revision. Every night before you sleep, you must revise your day. If you experienced financial disappointment, if a bill went unpaid, if a sale fell through, if you felt the sting of lack, do not leave it in consciousness. Prune it, cut it out, revise it, replay the scene as it should have been. See the bill paid, see the sale completed, see abundance where there was lack. You are not changing the past, you are changing consciousness. And consciousness, my friend, consciousness is what creates your world. Now, here is where the lecture turns, my friend. Most who hear me understand assumption, they understand feeling. But there is one thing I have not yet told you, one detail about revision that has been stripped from every modern interpretation of the law. Without this detail, revision becomes mere fantasy. With it, revision becomes the blade that cuts poverty from your consciousness. I will tell you that detail now. I will give you an example from my own life. Years ago, I deposited a check. The next day, I learned it had been returned, insufficient funds in the account of the one who wrote it. I felt the disappointment. I felt the frustration. That night, I revised it. I imagined going to the bank. I imagined the teller smiling and saying, "Mr. Goddard, your deposit has cleared perfectly." I felt the relief, the satisfaction. I did not try to change the outer fact. I changed it in imagination. But here is the detail most miss. I did not revise it once and move on. I revised it with feeling. I revised it until the revised version felt more real than what had happened. I stayed in that revision until the sting of the disappointment was gone, replaced by the satisfaction of the corrected event. Within 3 days, an unexpected deposit came into my account, not from the person who wrote the original check, but from another source entirely. The amount was enough to cover what the check should have been, and more. Now you might say, "Neville, that is coincidence." I say to you, there is no coincidence. I revised the disappointment in consciousness, and the outer world conformed. Revision is not denial, it is reconstruction. You are not pretending the disappointment did not happen. You are refusing to let it remain in consciousness as fact. You are replacing it with what should have been, and feeling that replacement until it is more real than the original. Every night, revise your financial day. Did you feel lack? Revise it to abundance. Did you experience rejection? Revise it to acceptance. Do this faithfully, and you will see your financial world transform. The fifth law is this: live in the end. Do not imagine the means. Do not imagine the journey. Imagine the destination. Live in the end. If you want financial freedom, do not imagine getting a job. Do not imagine a raise. Do not imagine winning money. Those are means. Imagine being financially free. That is the end. Remember what I told you a few moments ago, that assumption hardens into fact. Now, this is where you see why. The how is not your concern. Your concern is to occupy the state of the wish fulfilled. When you do that, the bridge of incidents will appear, the means will present themselves, but they will not be the means you imagined, they will be the means that consciousness creates. I knew a man who wanted wealth. He kept imagining job interviews. He imagined promotions. He imagined raises. All the steps, all the means, and nothing came. I told him, stop imagining the journey. Imagine the destination. What does it feel like to be wealthy? Not to become wealthy, but to be wealthy now. He said, I do not know. I have never been wealthy. I said, then construct a scene that implies wealth. What would you do if you were wealthy? What would you see? What would you feel? He thought for a moment. He said, I would review my investments. I would look at statements showing substantial holdings. I would feel secure knowing I am provided for. I told him, then do that. Imagine reviewing those statements. Feel the security. Live in that end. He did. Every night he imagined sitting in a comfortable chair, reviewing investment statements, feeling the quiet satisfaction of financial security. He did not imagine how he would get the investments. He simply imagined having them. Within 4 months, a business opportunity came to him, not through any effort of his own, but through a casual conversation at a social gathering. The opportunity required a small initial investment, which he somehow managed to gather. Within a year, that investment had grown substantially. The outer world had created the bridge he could not have planned. Live in the end. The how will take care of itself. The sixth law is one that most misunderstand. It is the Sabbath. The rest. After you have imagined, you must rest. The Sabbath is not a day of the week. It is a psychological state. It is the state of rest in the assumption fulfilled. You have imagined wealth. You have felt it. You have revised your day. Now you must cease from labor. Cease from striving. Cease from checking for evidence. Your rest is the proof of your faith. If you truly believe your assumption will harden into fact, you will rest in it. You will not anxiously look for signs. You will not worry about when it will come. You will simply go about your day, knowing it is done. Now I must insist on this, my friend, because this is where the entire work is undone. After you imagine, you must not look for evidence. You must not check the bank account the next morning to see if it has changed. You must not measure the outer world against your inner assumption. The moment you do, you have left the Sabbath. You have re-entered labor, and labor is the confession that it is not yet done. Rest. Rest completely. Do not let anyone, including yourself, talk you out of this rest. I tell you, the moment you rest, the moment you stop trying to make it happen, it will happen. But if you keep laboring, if you keep striving, you are affirming that it is not yet done. You are living in the state of waiting, not having. I have tested this in my own life. After I imagine my desire, I enter a state of complete rest. I do not look for it. I do not think about it obsessively. I simply know it is done, and in that rest, it comes to pass. You must learn to rest. This is the hardest part for most of you. You imagine and then immediately you begin to worry. When will it come? How will it come? Is it working? And in that worry, you leave the state. Rest, my friend. Rest in the assumption that it is already done. That rest is your Sabbath, and in that Sabbath, all things are made new. The seventh and final law is the foundation of all the others. It is the power of I am. All causation is in consciousness, and your I am is the creative power. What follows your I am is what you create. If you say I am poor, you are commanding poverty. If you say I am struggling, you are commanding struggle. If you say I am waiting for money, you are commanding waiting. But if you say I am wealthy, if you say I am supplied, if you say I am abundant, you are commanding wealth. Make no mistake, your I am is God in action. It is the creative power of the universe. Use it wisely. I knew a man who constantly said, even in jest, I am broke. He would laugh as he said it, but I tell you, there is no jest in the creative power. Every time he said, I am broke, he was decreeing poverty. I told him, stop, do not speak those words again. Say instead, I am supplied, I am abundant. Say it until you feel it. At first he thought it foolish. He said, but Neville, I am broke. It is true. I said to him, it is true because you have declared it true. Change your declaration and it will cease to be true. He began to watch his I am. Every time he caught himself about to say I am broke, he stopped. He replaced it with I am supplied. At first it felt false, but he persisted. Within 3 weeks, his financial situation began to shift. Small amounts at first, an unexpected refund, a forgotten debt repaid to him, then larger amounts, a new client, an opportunity he had not sought. He came to me and said, Neville, it is working. I said, it is not working, it is law. You changed your I am, and your world had no choice but to change with it. Watch what follows your I am. Guard it jealously, because your I am is the creative power, and it is creating your world every moment. Now, these 7 laws are one law. Consciousness creates, assumption hardens into fact, feeling gives it life, revision clears the past, living in the end brings the future, the Sabbath seals it, and I am commands it all. But I know what you are asking. You are asking, Neville, how do I apply this? What do I do tonight? Before I tell you how to apply this tonight, there is one final thing, my friend, one piece that separates those who see their world respond in 2 weeks from those who never do. It is the moment just before sleep. What you do in that moment, in that state akin to sleep, determines whether the assumption takes root in your subconscious or remains surface thought. I must address that now, for it is everything. I will tell you exactly what to do. Tonight, when you retire to your bed, you will do this. First, you will enter the state akin to sleep, that drowsy state between waking and sleeping. In that state, the conscious mind is quiet and the subconscious is receptive. Second, in that state, you will construct a scene, a simple scene that implies your financial desire is fulfilled. Do not imagine the getting, imagine the having. If you desire financial security, imagine reviewing a healthy bank statement. Imagine feeling the relief, the satisfaction. Make it simple, make it specific. Third, you will replay that scene, not once but again and again until it feels natural, until the feeling of wealth is more real than the feeling of lack. Fourth, you will not strain, you will not force, you will simply loop the scene gently, feeling its reality until you drift into sleep, and you will fall asleep within that assumption. When you wake in the morning, do not immediately check the evidence, do not look at the bank account, do not measure the lack. Instead, return to the feeling, recall the scene, feel it again. During the day, when thoughts of lack arise, and they will arise, do not fight them, simply replace them. Return to your assumption. Say to yourself, I am wealthy, I am supplied. Feel it as true. Before you sleep the next night, revise your day. If you experienced financial disappointment, revise it. See it as you wish it had been. Then return to your scene, your assumption, and fall asleep in it again. Do this faithfully for 1 week, just 1 week, and I promise you, you will see evidence. Not because the law is slow, but because you need time to build the assumption, to make it natural, to persist in it. The law works instantly in consciousness, but it takes time for you to remain faithful to the new state. That is the only delay. So I tell you, do this tonight. Enter that drowsy state. Assume the wish fulfilled. Feel it as natural. Revise any lack from today, and rest in the knowledge that it is done. Your financial world is not controlled by the economy. It is not controlled by your employer. It is not controlled by your circumstances. It is controlled by your consciousness. Change your consciousness and your financial world must change. There is no other power. There is no other cause. You are that consciousness. And now I tell you, my friend, the secret you have just heard is not a secret at all. It has been hiding in plain sight in every sentence I have spoken. The state, my friend, the state. When you assume the wish fulfilled, you do not perform a technique, you enter a state. The state of being wealthy. And from that state, the world has no choice but to rearrange itself to conform to what you are. You see, most of you have been treating these principles as methods, as techniques to be applied. You imagine for 10 minutes, then you step out of the state and return to observing lack. But I tell you, imagination is not a method, it is the way you enter and occupy a state. The state is everything. The state determines what you see, what you experience, what comes into your world. Change the state and everything changes. You do not need to imagine wealth for hours. You need only to enter the state of wealth and remain there. Live from that state. Think from that state, feel from that state, and the world which is yourself pushed out must reflect it. This is the law I have been teaching you for all these years, not a law of attraction, not a law of effort, a law of assumption, a law of states. Occupy the state of the wish fulfilled, and I promise you, the wish will become fact. This is not hope, this is not belief, this is law. Tonight, when you retire to your bed, do this just once. Enter that drowsy state. Assume the feeling of financial security, of abundance, of freedom. Occupy that state. Rest in it. Fall asleep within it. That is all. No effort, no straining, no wondering if it is working. Simply assume and sleep. In the morning, you may find that consciousness has done its perfect work while you slept. Or you may find that the assumption must be persisted in for several nights or several weeks. Both are well, my friend, both are well. The law does not fail. Only persistence is required. Remember always, consciousness creates reality. The world is yourself pushed out. What you assume within, the world must reflect without. This is not theory, this is law. I have given you 7 facets of this one law tonight. Use them, test them, prove them in the laboratory of your own experience. And when you have proven them, you will know, as I know, that there is no power outside of consciousness. There is no cause outside of assumption. There is only you, the operant power, imagining and experiencing. Your financial world is in your hands, not in the hands of the economy, not in the hands of your employer, not in the hands of fate or circumstance. In your hands, in your consciousness. Go now into the silence. Assume the wealth you desire. Feel it as real. Rest in the Sabbath of that assumption and watch your world transform. May you sleep tonight in the state of the wish fulfilled. May your assumption harden into fact while you rest. And may you wake tomorrow knowing that you are the operant power and consciousness is the only reality. Until we meet again, my friend, live in the end. Good night.